Oops. It was Chris. Okay, they invited him back. We'll see. If he comes back, then that'll be there. But he currently hosted a live on this last night. And I'm just curious to see kind of how that works out. Hi! Oh, there we go. He is hosting a live on it now. I told you.
Oh
Hey,
shit, what's
Chris,
going on? Hey.
you look so tired. You good?
Yeah, I had some work related things that kept me up till like 2 a.m. last night, but also,
Boss shit, boss type shit. I'm so proud of you. Did the gym outside this morning?
I ran and almost got struck by lightning again because Houston's kind of crazy right now.
Y'all, so sorry. Make sure you say win Chris in the comment section. Chris this is my big brother Sav. Sav this is my big brother Chris. Meet each other from Nigeria to America. I am curious of your opinion, being a U.S. veteran and your education on this, and Sav opinion back on it. What do you think of the situation embarking between Iran and Israel right now that could potentially involve the United States? This was 3 minutes ago.
Sav, you can go ahead if you want to. I'll just let the goat go first. You know what I mean?
Oh, and I already spoke on this topic, but my point is that Israel is hitting different sites in Iran. So this is not just a pinpointed attack on the nuclear facility in Iran. This is an all-out war with Iran. I think their war effort and their goals are changing by the minute. Initially, it's about taking out the nuclear sites. Now they're targeting the airplanes. They're targeting you know, um, they are targeting critical government and military infrastructure. They are targeting and liquidating top generals. They are removing the targeting chain of command and so on and so forth. So this is an all-out declaration of war. And I would add to that that this wouldn't have been possible without the say-so of the United States. In fact, the planning and the execution, maybe the planning and whatever led up to this happened with the know-how, with the green light from the United States of America. And well, the other political point I want to touch on is why is Iran and their allies saying it's America, and America and Israel are trying so hard to say it's not the US. So maybe we can start from that position.
One thing I'm gonna say on that, right, is yes, I do agree with your point. I mean, we see the profile of the people that have been taken out. Many members of the primary cabinet, including like the former head of the atomic research program and all these other things. Now, will this be inflammatory to other parts of the world? Absolutely. China has said that they won't get involved, don't have much confidence in there. Russia was in the middle of building nuclear facilities of their own in the vicinity of the outskirts of Tehran. Concurrently, we do have U.S. CENTCOM operating in Syria, which is adjacent nearby. Qatar, a place like Qatar, they've stopped air travel and all these other things. And then I've been spending all morning trying to like confirm this, so as much as I can possibly can. But apparently there was an Israeli aircraft called Israel 555 that was over Los Angeles concurrently at the same time. There it is, Israeli Air Force 555. So I'm not really sure what that's all about, but yeah, so multi-unilateral operations is going to result in a regional war at some point or another. Now, the most ironic thing is that the U.S. is going to make a last-ditch effort, right, to go sign a nuclear deal, even though they failed 5 times all the way up to Rome. And I don't think it's going to. So obviously, I'm no expert at geopolitics, but if it didn't work when they weren't in a war, it's definitely not going to work now, especially since the envoy that was supposed to meet with the United States on Sunday has now been unalived. So we're just better off just not getting involved in this and causing it to become more inflammatory.
Yeah, again, this is the interesting part. We are not going to get involved in this. This has nothing to do with us. On just 2 3 days ago, the U.S. The State Department was encouraging like non-essential workers in the U.S. embassy in Iraq and other places in the region to evacuate. They had intelligence. They knew this was happening while they were having conversation or negotiations about the nuclear deal with Iran. America have always encouraged this. The Trump administration said from day one that we will bomb Iran if the Iranians don't succumb and acquiesce to our position, meaning you have to sign a deal. And the Israelis made it clear from day one. They had a conversation with the Americans that the only thing they are looking for is a Libyan-style denuclearization of Iran, meaning blowing up the facilities. They don't want any sort of negotiation. So this basically is a smoke screen. The whole conversation in Oman was a smoke screen, and America is ready. America is prepared, and we see other political efforts that they have made, including, rushing and trying to do some kind of deal with China to have some truce on the tariff war front, and trying to pacify the Russians and all of this. All of this is leading up to something. By the way, if you're saying that America is not involved in it, the Iranians are not saying it like that. And most countries around the world are saying, we know you did it. Even the attack recently, this is no longer news. We know how the US operates. Even the Ukrainian attack recently on Russia, the Russians are saying that America directly got involved in it. They gave them the intel, they gave them the green light to do so. So there's the political side of it and there's the military side of it. Israel is doing this with the blessings of the United States of America. The only thing that America is trying to do is that if America is dragged into it, it will have a lot of consequences politically and economically. And the reason why the Chinese are waiting and waiting patiently is they want America to be involved in multiple wars on multiple fronts, create enormous problems for them across the world. Then it will be easier to walk into Taiwan. If you follow the news recently in America, and even the fallout between Donald Trump and I think the Elon Musk, and one neocon guy was talking about, I forgot his name, is one of the Trump strong supporters of Donald Trump. He was saying that Elon Musk wanted to get the war plans with China because China already have a plan in place to go to Taiwan. Well, America cannot afford an all-out war in the Gulf and also try to defend Taiwan at the same time, while the war between Russia and Ukraine is going on. This is an Armageddon. And again, when you have weak leaders, all of this, and I'm not going to blame Trump for everything, by the way. When you bring in somebody like Joe Biden, a lot of this started when Biden came to power. There's a lot of mistakes that have been made managing the complications of international politics and American interests around the world and American power. It's very intricate and it requires good leadership. You guys have created all these things all over the world, and chicken is coming back home to roost. Look, I'm more interested in seeing how this ends at the end of the day. What is America going to do? You're talking about signing an agreement with Iran. No, the gloves are off. This is a declaration of war. If Iran did this to Israel, it would be a declaration of war. And I don't see any outrage on your side. I don't see an outrage in America. I don't see outrage in Europe. Well, all they are doing is watered down statements, this is not okay, let's stop. But if we see the same attack from Iran, the whole world will come crashing down. This is the double standard. And this is why we look you in your eyes and say, we do not want you to be the dominant hegemon in the world. And well, you are going to say, well, come and take us out. This is what you're saying. Gradually, you're losing your position and you're doing so. I mean, look at Germany. The more you keep entrenching yourself and expanding, your influence or whatever around the world and engaging in these wars, we see a decline in your power. And it is the interest of those of us in the global south that don't benefit from any of this to see you go. This is the way I feel, and I think America is the bigger elephant. We want America down. With America down, the likes of Israel as well will not be able to do what they're doing.
I agree. And going back to your statement about Russia and China, right? You are 100% accurate. They're both strategically waiting to see what happens. So Russia has at least said they're not getting involved. The People's Republic of China has stayed relatively silent. But the interesting part, the last-ditch meeting that we had in Rome with Iran, they were questioning 3 chemical companies that China was in the vicinity of Tehran that had to do with their clean energy program. We all know that nuclear material is part of clean energy. So they were questioning that. They were questioning Russia's commitment in order to make their nuclear facilities in Tehran as well. So we do know that ever since Trump proposed colonizing Gaza in the very beginning of his administration, that's given China more influence in the region, including becoming part of Saudi Arabia's 2030 plan and things like that. Russia's been creeping in, right, because U.S. lifted sanctions on Syria, and they've been building a base right outside of Aleppo, which is next to their only warm water port that they have to defend. So I'm with your point there. They're both sitting and waiting and seeing what happens, because if they get directly involved right now, it wouldn't be in their best interest anyway.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's not a weakness. By the way, you see how China has been waiting and waiting patiently. They had the opportunity to get involved directly because Russia is one of their biggest allies. They refused to participate. And by the way, I look at the conflict in Ukraine, which I've been following closely. Some of the most important components of that war is being supplied by China. The Americans are not paying attention to. I think it's called is it PUV or whatever. I forgot the name of the drones. Very cheap drones. They are supplying the parts to both Ukraine and Russia. And Chinese tech is on full display. Is on full display in that conflict. This is the next way forward. Whatever the Israelis are doing with the Arab countries, that most of their military, to be honest, are on sleepers. They call them Jaish Abu Shahata, the army on sleepers. There's no real army in the Middle East that I'll argue is modern, that have dealt with, the Israelis, by the way, have been on the war footing for a long time. Well, if Israel is going to run around and damage, American posture and outlook in the region, good for China. China is going to wait and wait until America is dragged in directly. America is saying, well, we want to get things done, but not with us dragged in directly. How do we find the balance with, letting Israel do the heavy lifting and the dirty job for us? Why people see us as, oh, you see, Biden told Netanyahu, you can't go to Rafah. Biden says you can't do this. Trump said, no, we don't want conflict with Iran. No, of course you do. But again, it's the political calculation that America is doing because America is also seeing what the Chinese and the Russians are doing, waiting them out to make sure that they are dragged into a position of vulnerability and they can hit. Well, it will be interesting for us to see what happens next. With Iran acquiesce, with the leadership in Iran be decapitated, would there be some kind of boots on the ground in Iran? This is the interesting part. This is the part I want to see. Will you bomb for 2 days and give up and say, no, we are done with the bombing, we want to go home? Well, you have declared war on them. Will you bomb and go home? And when you bomb and go home, without any form of agreement, remember there's no agreement in Syria. There's no agreement between Israel and the government in Lebanon. There's no agreement with Yemen. There's no substantive agreement in Gaza. These guys have created problem in the region for you. By the way, whatever you think of Hamas, they have not been largely wiped out in Gaza. Of course, you're punishing the population and starving them, which is good PR for the rest of the world. By the way, we see what you're doing. And this is why a random guy from Africa like myself thinks differently about your attitude and your behavior. Gone are the days of the 80s and 70s where Hollywood paints a good picture of you. First, you lose the minds of the people, and then it goes in a different direction. People in my age and younger will see things differently, and when they get in the position, it's not just saying what I'm saying. You see, there's a guy in Burkina Faso that's 34 years old or 35 years old, and see how he's behaving. You see how he's behaving? When people of that age get in power in Africa, we will kick you out. We will ensure that you have no succor and base here, and you're not going to tap into the economy. This is what they are doing to the Europeans. Why do you think the Europeans are restive? Why do you think the Europeans are so angry with Russia? Because they believe that the Russians are helping those countries in Africa to kick them out, to deny them the economic oxygen in Africa that they're using against Russia and Europe. This is why France is in this posture against Russia. It's not because of the love for Ukraine. It's not because they care about the sovereignty of Ukraine. It's also an economic war. And most of the largesse you need from Africa. I'm not talking about America can bomb any country and take whatever they want. At least that's what they are doing at this point. But when there is an alternative power, when there's an alternative bloc, and the more you continue to do this, you can deny all you want till the cows come home and say it is not America, it's Israel. There's a reason why this is making the news, and America, the State Department, the White House is trying as hard as possible to say it's not the US, it's Israel. And on the other hand, people are saying it's the US. Well, people are saying it's Israel, of course, but they are saying it's the US. They're saying it's Israel because to a lesser extent, you say that the Israelis are a regional power and so on and so forth. But nobody in the world would believe for a second that this would have happened without the say-so, without the green light of the United States of America. And I hope in my lifetime I can see all of this come to fruition and come to reality. I personally want America gone. Economically, I don't want people to be unalive. But when I see this, and you don't care, because a lot of neocons probably in your comment and say, who's this stupid guy from Africa? What does he know? We are in a position, which is fine. But you have to listen. This is what we are saying about you. So whatever you think is happening on your end, and you guys are all yanking each other's balls and thinking that the whole world loves you. No, no, we don't. Especially those of them in my age and below, the octogenarians, the old guys, that are empowered, that travel to the US and did their masters there. They have friends in America. They're still probably like you. The younger generation see it differently. And if there's war in Europe and they see your hand there and they're seeing all of this is not the 70s and the 80s anymore. There is information and we see it differently. I don't know, man. I just don't want to ramble on and on and on. It's not just about this Israeli attack on Iran. It's other things as well as we continue to see. This is a big giant deflection and good for Israel to deflect from the situation in Gaza. At the end of the day, the Israelis are thinking they're smart, but they're creating other problems. Their goal is not Iran, it's not Lebanon, it's Gaza. And they continue to move the needle. It doesn't work in Lebanon. It doesn't give them enough satisfaction. They go to Syria. It doesn't help with the bad PR in Gaza. They move, and now they're going to take on the big elephant, which is Iran, maybe in the region. And again, for the next 3 weeks, nobody's going to say anything about Gaza. The Israelis now have a carte blanche, a free hand to run riot in Gaza without it making the news. There's no pressure. Over the past 1 week, we saw what the Europeans are doing. The Europeans are now coming to the realization that, hang on a second, where do we have the moral high ground to tell anybody anything? And this is happening under our watch. The Europeans are the biggest hypocrites. At least the Americans are honest about their genocidal position. They make it very clear. I respect that. The Europeans are not the same. They're bootlickers. They are simps. They are hypocrites. I don't see the outrage from the Europeans now that Israel have launched a direct war. Maybe a war of attrition, I don't know, it's at an early stage. We do not know for sure what the Israelis want, but I will tell you right now, they cannot bomb and go home.
Yeah.
They cannot bomb and go home. How do you bomb and go home? You can't bomb and say, I've achieved my objective, thank you very much, just remain there and I'm going back home. And this is why they don't know when to stop. And if they can't stop now, at the point America is going to get dragged in. Well, do all the PR all you want, but America is already involved in this. And I'm seeing the movement of your assets in the region. There's no bombing and going home. You can't bomb and go back home. I'm sorry. What is your prediction? Go ahead and tell us what you think will happen.
And here's the thing about that part, right? And people tend to forget to, like, all of Iran's proxies is going to get involved too. I mean, Yemen, the Houthis already have all their missiles has got intercepted. Then you got to worry about Hezbollah, but also the topic that the West refuses to talk about is exactly what happened concurrently, right? What just happened in Sudan, right, in the triangle between Libya, Egypt, and Sudan, the Haftar militants, right? Everything's just kind of happening at once right now, and Western interventionism. I mean, RSF has been doing this for quite some time. It's just that there's a lot more eyes on this situation now and and even right before this started, Netanyahu was even arming former ISIS gang members that was linked to one of the most dangerous people in that faction. That was Yashir al-Shabaab, right? So Western interventionism in the Levant, going with the Haftar militants as well, and this going on with Iran. Yeah, not good times right now, but lots of eyes in different places trying to get people distracted on various parts of the world at one time.
And this is my message for those of you in Africa. From the beginning, I warned. I spoke about it. You said you're not getting involved. It's none of your business. Some of you directly hate the Arabs. I understand that. Get ready. Shit is about to hit the fan. This conflict is not going to be domiciled and restricted to the Middle East. Africa will be a battleground. You mentioned Sudan. I would add to that Libya.
Yeah, Libya. Yeah.
I would add to that Libya because there are different factions. You have the government in Tobruk and Tripoli, largely supported the claim by the United Nations, but maybe Italy and Turkey and whatever are supporting. And you have the renegade General Khalifa Haftar, who's largely supported by Russia and to some extent the French. There will be different groups moving in different directions, attacking each other. There will be a lot of activation of proxies around Africa. The Eastern Med, the Western Med will be grounded to a halt. Tell me one reason why America will not get involved if their interest is going to be targeted. While America is saying we are not getting involved, they saw this coming, they knew the consequence of this, and gave the green light. The Pentagon, the CIA, and maybe the State Department, all of them knew about this and asked the Israelis to do it, hoping they can bomb and go home. This is not 1981. The Israelis did that successfully in Iraq, unalived French engineers. By the way, we don't know the full consequence of what have happened in terms of who is directly involved. Are the Chinese there on the ground that have been unalived? Do we have Russian engineers building on the sites? It's not just them taking out Iranians. And for political reasons, the Russians will be adamant to say what have happened because they have their own problems as well. And I can assure you something, is that Russia is not going to be taken out. If shit hits the fan, the Russians will use, and by the way, you're making it easy. If America is dragged into so many places, what if Russia used nuclear weapon on Ukraine? What's going to happen? Tell me what will happen. America is not getting involved. Europe is not getting involved. They will pacify them. And I see that likely to happen because there are so many things happening in so many places. Again, this is a build-up from the Biden administration. We've been warning, when you have weak leadership in place, this is what happens because it has a domino effect. This has been going on steadily. Having leaders in place and having this system that you guys have that is, this is, by the way, democracy is a good thing, but I'm telling you, your system is not the best. It's old. There's a need for modification. There's a need for an improvement or some updating of your system. Political system, I would argue, because people say all sorts of stuff to gain power, and when they gain power, they want to retain power, so they try to follow through on commitments, like what we saw, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. This support for Israel is dragging America down. They say no matter what happens, we are going to stand with Israel. This is an attack on the Jews. How does this make it any better for people running around the world? And I would argue, personally, I don't have a problem with these people. But for that kid, that 10-year-old kid in Indonesia, how do you make this any better? How does he understand that this is not who you are? Well, you're saying it's not important. It is important. These people will gain the levels of power tomorrow. And like we are seeing in Africa already, with young people gaining power in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and Niger. And somebody will say it's not important. This is Africa. It's some kind of backwater country. Well, you should know where your economic base, where your economy is largely pumped up from. It's coming from those countries around the world that are tied to the SWIFT system, that continue to provide you with raw materials, that some of the immigrants, you continue to bomb their countries, go to the West and contribute to your economy. And if you say you don't care about them, fine. But it is getting worse and worse by the day. And I'm sorry, this makeshift agreement that Trump is trying to make with the Chinese, it's not going to work. The Chinese are not stupid. They understand what is going on. You started a trade war with them, and all of a sudden you are running around.
You can tell him when he's monologuing, because sometimes he forgets that he's teaching. So he just goes through his brain nonstop. You can tell.
Yeah, but look, I don't want a monologue, but I'm just going through my paces the way I see. You can stop me at any time, and
Let me ask you this: do you believe that Iran will conduct an attack on the U.S.?
Not mainland America.
Mainland.
They don't
No. I don't think Iran is in the position to do that. And it's stupid. Why would you want to do that? It's a military doctrine of the concentration of maximum force against a single strategic objective. So if the Iranians want to target America, they can. I mean, it's close to home. You have to waste little resources to target their bases in Bahrain. Of course, they are going to fight back. And when they fight back, it's an unending circle of violence. Then America would, at the point, there will be a justification to send your troops directly to Iran. This is what we want you to do. We want you to send your troops to Tehran. Please send in your troops to Iran so that you can get bogged down in another long drawn-out war of attrition. This is what the world wants you to do. And this is what the Iranians are praying for. There's no other way. Bombing and going home is not going to be enough. And I don't think the Israelis are willing to do that. Well, send a bunch of Jewish people to Iran and see what happens in the region. This is the way they are going to see it. I'm sorry, this is the way they are going to interpret it.
If we don't have the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or anybody that's currently a part of a nuclear program affiliation able to confirm anything in Iran, how are we sitting here and saying that they don't have the capability?
Well, I mean, if we want to use a typical mathematic type of argument here, their most recent model of ICBM only has like one third of the mileage range that a traditional one has, which is around 5,500 miles, right? So when you're talking about hitting the U.S., it would have to be somewhere within the Middle East because they can't even make it across the ocean. So that would have to be in your places where they got bases like in Iraq or in Baghdad or anywhere like that, or somewhere in the ocean off the coast. Like they, even without this going on, they never had the capability to go all the way to the U.S. They don't have the ICBM range that most modern countries do at the moment.
And Ukraine would have never had the capability of fighting Russia if they didn't have friends. Who are the friends of Iran?
Friends of Iran would be various numbers of their proxies, starting with the Yemen Houthis, right, number one, Lebanon to a certain capacity with Hezbollah, number two. Questionable based on the meeting in Rome between the United States and Iran, possibly Russia because they were in the process of actually building nuclear facilities. Possibly China, but they're waiting. But they did have about three chemical companies that were linked to helping Iran with clean tech, clean energy. So to answer your question, it's a combination of already pre-existing proxies in the Middle East, pending Russia, pending China.
All right, and I'll say something you left out, which is very important. Iraq, the structure of Iraq, there's a parallel army that's competing with the regular army in Iraq, and it have almost equal measure of capability. I'm talking about the Hashd al-Shabi. The first thing America did was to evacuate their personnel or ask for the non-essential working staff to leave. Iraq would be the place that I think would happen because, of course, Basra is in proximity to Kuwait, where you have a lot of these American military bases. You can check out Basra right now. It's a coastal town or governorate. It's a governorate close to Kuwait. And you have groups like Kataib Hezbollah, the Mahdi Army, the Badr Brigade, with a fighting force of close to 150, 160,000 fighters, armed to the teeth. These are the same people that on the ground removed ISIS, if you remember what happened during that period. And these guys are loyal to Iran. So again, they're smoldering and thinking of what to do. But if this goes on and on, well, Iraq will be another place. And if Iraq goes up in smoke, we're still going back to what's going to happen with Turkey. Okay? And so the Turks also have their own interest in Iraq. Look, it is, I don't know where this is going to end, but this is my prediction. America would eventually be dragged into this conflict. There's no running away.
So why did we not mention North Korea as an ally of Iran?
I mean, so I see why you're coming to that conclusion. I can make that case because Russia kind of brought them in with the Ukraine. But
well, no, this is specifically relations before. Iranians are one of the only countries that are allowed to have an e-visa right now to go into North Korea. They have a direct entrance. That's how close they are. And did North Korea just confirm that they can hit U.S. mainland less than 6 months ago with their new intercontinental ballistic missiles?
Supposedly, yeah.
And just a second, as we speak right now, attacks are now hitting targets in Tel Aviv.
Also, I have a map here of IF 302. Netanyahu's fleeing to Greece at the moment.
He left?
Yeah, I got the map pulled up. So you got this. So you got the map of IAF 302 heading over to Greece at the moment.
I don't want no one to say shit about Volodymyr Zelensky ever again.
Could there be a large-dish effort by the U.S. and other interests in Israel to remove Netanyahu and replace him?
What you mean? What that got to do with why it always got to do with us?
Yeah, because they are your clients. You pay them and fund them and allow them to do whatever they're doing.
Netanyahu is one of us. That man grew up in Pennsylvania.
The guy is an American. He is American.
I'm saying, so why would we want to get rid of an American?
No, I'm not getting rid of him. If he's currently not acquiescing to your political positions, there could be a sense in them trying to push him on exile to the US or to remove him from office to try to douse the tension again. I don't know, man. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't even think that is going to happen. But will you leave Netanyahu in place to oversee this third world war? This is, by the way, I don't know, man. Maybe Iran is weak and Iran will just, sign an agreement and say, we're sorry, we're not going to fight again. I don't see that happening. This will be a fight to the finish.
Yeah, but you got to remember, this isn't the first time him fleeing the country. He's been um, intermittently in and out. Like he was just in Europe a month or two ago in one of the 155 countries he's not supposed to be in because he's supposedly supposed to get
ICC.
arrested. But so, I mean, number one, number two, I mean, come on, if you look at the map from where he flew from, it's not that far away. He's just trying to get out of striking distance of the missiles, but he's a coward for leaving his people behind. I don't think he's fleeing. He's probably going to come right back. Like, I'm going to keep an eye on the map of IF 302, but no, I don't think he's fleeing. He's probably going to come right back at some point.
So what's wrong with the Iron Dome that he would leave right now?
The
It's
Iron
a
Dome, the
it's an
Iron Dome can
obsolete
be
design.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's an obsolete design for like one of many reasons. Number one, people found out over time if you fly it low enough, right, due to the mechanics, you can actually get 33.2% missiles through as well. Also, it's not an unlimited missile system. There's a lot of U.S. and U.K. systems, right, that feed like arms dealers to those missiles, right? So when they start running out, like they can't sustain this level of activity if this goes on to this time next week. I doubt it will. But yeah, this isn't a finite missile system. Like you have to load physical munitions in there, and the two biggest suppliers of these physical munitions would be U.S. and UK ammunition suppliers. So he's probably a little bit
Yeah,
worried about that. Yeah.
yeah. And by the way, you say they need constant supply. There should be a chain of supply. They'll need that to sustain this. And would America say, oh, hang on, we're not going to resupply you? Or would they say, well, we need this to end? Look, I don't know, man. Again, I go back to the US. There's no shying away from this. The US will be eventually dragged in. So all that PR and everything going on in Washington, D.C., with people like Lindsey Graham, for 10, 15 years have been calling for this. They've been asking for this. This is all they wanted. So at the end of the day, I don't know, man. Would you guys back down and say, oh, stop fighting, we are going to do some kind of deal? I don't see that happening. It's disappointing that all the promises and whatever they said about Trump have gone out of the window because the guy is clearly incapable and he's been overwhelmed by this deluge of different interests, especially on the international political front. He's weak.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the current capabilities of the Iron Dome, right? So you have 10 batteries around which creates the dome that measures about a 360-degree distance, right? So they can hold about 60 to 80 Tamir interceptor missiles at the same time. The reason why they're interceptor missiles is because they lock in on the electronics from the missile coming from the opposite cardinal direction. So that's why they kind of have an issue when you go too low because then you can't get under the belly of the missile and read the data. So across all batteries, they can hold about 600 to 800 missiles at a time, and the on-hand quantity of Tamir missiles is only about 6 days at a time without resupply. So yeah, so to a certain capacity, the U.S. is going to stand because if the government's not going to provide the missiles, well, we do kind of do have a semi-free market economy defense trade as well. You know, some of the biggest munition sellers that are also linked to paramilitaries around the world that also sells missiles for about 40,000 to 60,000 per missile. So if the U.S. government doesn't sell the missiles, you know, some of the defense contractors will, just to make some money. Yeah.
Okay. But in that light, in the situation that is, because I mean, we could have attacked Iran when they took our hostages in 1979, but we didn't. So, with that being said, is North Korea and Russia having the capability of hitting U.S. mainland a situation that we should be concerned with?
Russia's a little bit preoccupied with Ukraine. If they didn't have the attention, if Ukraine didn't have their attention about a month ago, they do now. Ukraine was able to take out 37% of their bombers with $50,000 worth of drones the other day, just using AI technology. They're a little bit preoccupied because if Ukraine continues their activity, they're going to take out more of those BOMBers that would be used against us. So Russia's kind of out of play right now. That's impressive that they were able to do that with only $50,000 of value in USD. Russia, not so much. They're worried about getting taken out by AI drones. North Korea, no idea. But at the same time, right, they're still using Cold War technology. Like, I know they were making this big front when Trump was first president. I don't see it. Maybe Alaska, but once again, we have the superior air defense system, terminal high altitude missile defense system, and Patriot missile defense system, where if we needed to fight North Korea, We can do it right above their heads, but not counting too much on Russia because now their eyes are wide open now, trying to make sure more AI drones aren't going to take out more of their bombers. They took out 37% of their existing bombers the other day. Wow, interesting.
Yes, with our weapons, because Ukraine doesn't have the funds to currently create all of those after declaring bankruptcy almost 10
I
years ago.
I
But,
agree.
but also, you said something interesting. THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System.
Yeah.
Does South Korea have one?
Do they have one? They have multiple because I was actually there back in the day. Yeah, they have multiple THAADs and they have multiple Patriots. Yeah,
And has South Korea been tested with those because of North Korea?
yeah. They actually test annually.
So, what would those defense systems be able to do to protect us when Japan, its little ass, was able to pull Pearl Harbor and invade Cali?
So you're talking about Pearl Harbor. You're comparing December 7th, 1941 to like today.
Well, if it happens, yeah, I would, because it would either be a nuke or an invasion.
Perfect. Yeah, so those can defeat threats like thousands of miles away, right? Either through their ICBM munition system, or they actually, according to many sources, like the Innovation Command, they're having AI integrations called the Hunter Killer missile system that's located inside. So yeah, they could fight that fight from South Korea to Japan without any U.S. soldiers getting closer. That's a capability we didn't have in 1941, right? So we can fight these war games really close to the actual enemy without getting close with people. That's the main differential, the difference that we didn't have back in 1941.
Being able to fight on their soil?
Yeah, with the missiles, yeah. Because not only do these missiles have the capability of reaching that far, they certain missiles can actually avoid radar detection. That's how sleek this stuff's getting. If
I
you
got
ever,
you, boss.
yeah.
The question is, if they've already tested out the missile systems, including the one of the Terminal High Area Altitude Defense System that existed, that we paid over $7.9 billion for once in 2007, and then again in 2017, and they showed us that they are able to breach it in 2023 and 2024 when South Korea went into an evacuation similar to Japan. I'm asking, what are we measuring to say the defense system in the United States of America is that we've given to other people are going to sustain not only our size, but we're talking about countries that are direct war. We're not talking about proxies. North Korea went straight to Ukraine. North Korea goes straight to African nations. Russia goes straight to the enemy nations. They don't conduct proxy wars unless they have to, outside of Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and those things that we can bring up evidently under the passing of the Soviet Union of 1991. So in that light, because I feel like it's a pride thing, if and Sav just gave it to us, America has hit and wommed every country on this damn planet. It doesn't matter if it was indirectly through our funding or directly through our weapons. I would sit here and say it would be a fallacy to not take into consideration that at some point in time it would be evident that the United States of America, clearly of a domino effect, would be hit next. We've never been hit in 275 years. We weren't hit during the time period of 1619 all the way to 1776, even as the American colonies under Britain. So it would, and we've caused all of these wars. So, I'm very curious on why you guys think Iran would be a situation that the United States wouldn't be scared of when you have never seen us invade them a day in our lives. Whereas countries right next to it that Iran has obvious, resources and they have collateral in it, we will invade any day. Simultaneously, we've never gotten our people back as hostages. We've never done negotiations with them. And he is correct. Lindsey Graham has come out of nowhere and said that since the 60s, he's wanted a war with him. So why are we saying that, A, Iran would be subsequently bashed by the United States? Iran, Persia, it's never been bashed by anything. Afghanistan, these countries have never been taken over. We've never won a war against them. You have served in the U.S. military, and you are so intelligent, you know almost damn near everything about all 7 continents. So in that light, where are we getting the information, even with what's on the back of my screen, that the United States of America isn't looking at an imminent attack? After Iran came out and said we are doing an imminent attack on the United States.
So President Trump says one thing and the people say the other thing. I don't agree with Donald Trump. He's the one saying that they're not looking at an attack. I don't agree with that guy. Leave me out of him. He's on True Social saying whatever the fuck without putting any analysis behind it. Even Tulsi Gabbard said that we're closer to a nuclear conflict than we've been in the Cold War, right? Their own cabinet can't even agree on what's about to happen. Marco Rubio says one thing, Tulsi Gabbard says the other thing, Donald Trump says the other thing. So I don't agree with what this administration because they don't know what they're talking about. Of course, I see Iran as a threat. That's why I was the biggest advocate of not backing out of the JCPOA under the Obama administration in 2015, right? Because if you can mitigate that. And number one, number two, right? Yeah, I don't downplay I don't downplay North Korea at all. I just think it was the false dichotomy bringing into the Ukraine war that we pledged not to get boots on the ground with. But like, what happened when they brought that small, that small amount of 10,000 troops in there? They got diced up and half of them deserted. But yeah, of course you should always keep North Korea, on threat because they've
Play
just
with
been.
fire. Let's do it. I got the most intelligent men on this panel. Let's fucking do it. Would Ukraine be able to fight Russia with no help from the EU and the United States of America? Yes or no?
Nope.
So why are we
Absolutely
having a
no
conversation like this
chance.
motherfucker is Sparta? They're not. We've been supplying this
Absolutely
for 10 years.
zero chance of Ukraine surviving one day, and I say one day without not the European Union because the most critical support that America is getting from the United States. And let's not forget, because I follow some of these uh, journalists from Russia, and they're always talking about two things: the intelligence that America is providing them, and on the Black Sea, the Ukrainians are using something that is really, really fucking up the Russians, Starlink. And that's an American tech as well. So they are attaching this Starlink to, because with the drones, they can easily jam them if they're using this GPS system. Look, I'm not an expert in, again, in rocket science and all this stuff, but they're saying that America is providing intelligence to Ukraine, and that makes the difference. The Europeans don't have those capabilities. So if it's conventional, Ukraine will struggle, even with the support from the EU. EU does not have what it takes to nullify Russia in that theater. So America provides critical and essential, not just resources, but also intelligence to Ukraine that is sustaining this conflict.
So can I throw a wrench in what you just said about Starlink real quick? Number one, I don't think Elon Musk operates in the best interest of the United States at all times when he's flying these damn satellites over. One of his IG complaints before he took on the Doge project is that he may have leaked data intentionally or unintentionally. We don't know because the investigation's not complete because the damn dude got fired illegally, by the way. You're not supposed to fire an IG in 7 days and then not give him 30 days performance notice. But there was evidence going on that he was leaking data to Russia because his Starlink was so open source at the time. So I don't have. So when you say Starlink connection, I'm going to automatically assume it's not always going to be in the interest of Americans at all times. I mean, the dude threw a fit when his revenue shares of Tesla went down and all these other things, right? So when it comes to that, I don't trust I don't trust the cybersecurity of Starlink whenever it's deployed. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that is also a political position for you to take, and this might be one of the, I don't know, this is you now saying you don't trust Elon Musk for different political reasons, but I'm telling you, as fact on the ground, Starlink is the life's blood, I would argue, of Ukraine, particularly when it comes to their activities with the use of the drones, with them bypassing the jamming system and electronic warfare of the Russians, because it provides them with an essential lifeline. And I also argue that the reason why this conflict between Russia and Ukraine is so complex and difficult for Russia is that this is the first time. I mean, America has not even gotten into this kind of stuff before. This is the new and the modern warfare. And I don't know for sure whether after the end of this conflict, other countries will take a look at what is happening on the theater in Ukraine and also try to develop their own systems. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the reason why, okay, so not only that, but he also has complaints with the Department of Defense, right? Doing things with the proper clearance and all these other things. And the reason why, so here's the thing, well, there's evidence that when they were flying Starlink over, so his idea was to have, like internet capabilities with Ukraine, but he's never once came and said that he's modified that system. So when Ukraine had access to internet, Russia did too, to a certain extent. So that while that might not have been intentional, the fact that he's failing compliance, deployment of his own technology that he should know a little bit better for. I'm not saying he's doing it on purpose, but I'm saying that's going to give the enemy a capability if he doesn't keep it closed source. But it's impossible to, or else you wouldn't get the instant internet capability on the ground. So he might be trying to help people, but he's giving the opposition insights as well. Just saying.
So let me ask you this. Do you know the challenges that the Russians are facing on the Black Sea? With
No,
this,
what's up?
with this, with these drone boats that are attached to Starlink, the Russians don't have. Are you saying that the Russians have access to Starlink? They don't. Right now, they don't. Now, the Ukrainians are, and by the way, the Russians cannot mount a similar campaign using some of these. They call them, I don't know how they call them. They call them these boats that operate like drones, manned with Starlinks, and they are knocking out and perforating some of these Russian vessels and forcing the Russians to retreat on the Black Sea. So that makes a lot of difference because without that, the Russians would have knocked out Odessa and stopped the supplies from coming to Ukraine. That is on one hand. Secondly, I'll go further to say that in as much as Elon Musk is a very volatile guy, we don't know what he thinks. If you are making the case that he's not really helping the West, can you make the same argument for him to take down Starlink and stop the Ukrainians from using it and see what happens?
U.S. said not helping the West. I mean, not helping the West do what? Continue to fund some of these proxy. Like, can we get a little bit closer to the median here, right? So, not help the West do what exactly?
Not help the West. I mean, not help Ukraine. I mean, it's not the West. It's not just the West. He is a product of the West. He's
Oh yeah,
representing.
he definitely helped Ukraine with the
Exactly,
Starlink.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but at the same time though, the inspector generals found out that his Starlinks were leaking information maybe too far of a radius that they weren't supposed to, and that's actually well documented. That's actually well documented under judicial jurisdiction. There's been about 17 IG complaints. 2 of them have been with the Department of Defense. 3 of them have been linked to Starlink. So it's either he's running around not knowing how to keep his own technology safe, or maybe there might be something behind there. But I'm just saying, in that Ukraine incident, it was a little bit of free game, open information sharing. I'm not denying the fact that Ukraine had internet capabilities, helped out a bunch, but if you're talking about somebody that can get easily pissed off when his company overseas isn't doing well, you really expect him to behave when it's wartime and he wants to help people out? I'm not seeing it, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point. I remember at the beginning of the conflict, there was a fallout between him and Zelensky, and he took down internet for 2 days. And I think Biden got directly involved in it, if you remember. And it
Yes.
had to be. This is what I'm saying. If he's that bad, I'm not saying that he's a good guy. You know, there might be leaks here and there. All is for money. These guys, they're capitalists. You can't really trust them. Okay. And I'm also worried. If I was an American, I'd be worried with the fact that you guys are like the NASA, the State Department. You're delegating most of this stuff to people like that can easily get pissed off and withdraw their support or screw you in the middle of a conflict. But if he's not really helping Ukraine and one leak here and there, paints the whole picture, why don't you allow him to take down the support for Ukraine and see what happens?
Okay.
Yeah, that's my point. But at the end of the day,
What is he flying? So what is he flying Starlink over Congo for right now? Why don't you fill me in on that one?
Oh, well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's not okay. Here's the situation in Congo. By the way, it's a place that I wanted to go to, but for some reason I've not been able to go to. I've been around the region, but I know quite a bit about Congo. The reason for it, no, it's a guy that loves his business. He's a smart guy. He wants to make money, but he's very close to 2 people that I will mention. The former education secretary under Trump called Betsy DeVos. I'm not sure you know about that lady. Betsy DeVos is a sister of one guy called Eric Prince. You can check up this 2 names. Betsy DeVos is the sister of Eric Prince. Eric Prince have been doing contracts in that place for a very long time. Well, it is in the best interest of him. By the way, I'm going into the nitty-gritty of it. I don't know. Starlink is everywhere. It gives it to like different countries for his own interest.
I agree.
It makes a lot of money for him. But the point I'm making is that Starlink is very important for some of those actors, including Glencore. The contracts that people like, what is his name? Eric Prince is doing on the ground, and Dan Gettler, and the Israel Diamond Exchange, and some of these guys as well, that are moving material from one place. Congo is remote. I want you to know, like from one end of Congo, some places there's no road, there's no access. It's an enormous country. The second largest rainforest in the world is in Congo. It's the Congo Basin. So as they're moving from one direction to another, they probably need internet, which the locals are not going to have. They need communications, and they need to fly drones to make for some of these supplies and contracts that they are doing. And himself, he needs access to critical minerals in the eastern part of the DRC, which is tantalite, and also cobalt and lithium, which are necessary for some, whether it's Tesla, whether it's what's the other one, SpaceX. Some of these critical minerals that he needs are in the eastern part of the DRC, which is very remote. Are you there? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just that I think Chewy had I'm a invite her back, but that's what I'm saying. So here's the thing: I don't doubt his capability of being beneficial. I'm just saying there are situations when the money isn't right. Right, he tends to change his. Like we trusted the guy to audit the government. You saw how that worked out. Hold on, I'm gonna invite Chewy back. I think she was trying to say something.
Yeah.
Is she still here? No, I don't see her. But yeah, no. Here's the thing. I don't doubt that capability. Right. I just say like when the money's not there, he changes his motive. But yeah. Where's she at?
Yeah, I don't think it's all for benevolent purposes. Sometimes it's for sinister reasons. And these guys are capitalists. What do you expect? You expect him to be benevolent and love people? No, that's not what he's there for. He's there for his own. And we saw the fallout between him and Trump when his interest was touched. Okay, this is the same guy that was talking about the bloated budget and the deficit and cleaned up the system throughout USAID, which I didn't like, by the way, from day one. And I'll tell you for a fact, as an African on the ground, we have been talking about, if you want, I can send you some videos from years
Yeah,
ago
please.
with some of our guys, because I've been directly on the ground myself in these conflict areas. I've been with men in trenches in the Northeast, and we see some of these NGOs coming in the name of humanitarian assistance and support, and they're coming with trucks. They refuse to have any oversight function over them. They refuse to be checked, and these guys are bringing in both the weapons and they're bringing the medicine and the support. So USAID have done a lot of bad things in Africa. It's not just them, it's some of these NGOs. So again, nothing is free. Elon Musk is not there to help or to support. He's also looking out for his own interest. And when I think one of the guy in NASA, or the top guy in NASA, he wanted his own candidate to be appointed because he's going to get contract for SpaceX. That didn't happen. And again, with the budget, there was going to be a lot of cuts in the government subvention and subsidies for Tesla and these EV cars. He didn't like that. And so it's all about interest. I think Shui has somebody on board. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
she does. She
Also, they're
definitely.
flying Starlink over Ecuador too, as well, because you already know that Latin America is what he would call an emerging market. But yeah, I don't disagree with your premise. I'm just saying, when stuff starts not getting in his favor, he might change the plan up just a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It won't be a surprise to me because Ecuador is also one of those countries that have a lot of biodiversity, and
yeah,
there's clearly some interest to be had there. The same thing happened. By the way, you see, like recently he's been losing his shit talking about South Africa. They want to do exactly the same thing in South Africa. But the South Africa have this thing where you have to somehow use a lot of local content. So if you want Starlink in South Africa, the law and the regulation, require you to sort of partner with the government, of some sort, or some local investors. And he doesn't want to do that. He just wants to have a free hand. And when that stuff didn't go his way, he started working with people like Johan Rupert, the Beers, the Oppenheimer, some of these guys that are his buddies or close to his dad. These are billionaires. They sit down and say, "Oh, how can you put pressure on the government?" That's how you saw the whole. That's why you saw the whole drama from Trump about the white farmers being unalive, which is a load of nonsense. I mean, it could be
yeah.
happening.
That there's no way that's possible because there
Load
was
of
only
nonsense.
7 farmers last year that got unalived, and 6 of them were black and 1 of them was white. And there's only been 2,000 farmers unaliving since 1990, according to their own Afro Forum. So he's making this up to be. And the Afrikaners, their population's only going down 1% in like 11 years, and most of that's because they've moved to other places.
Yeah, they're
So yeah,
moving.
that was complete. People are dumb enough here in America to believe that there is a genocide of white people. So
Yet last year there were 23,000 unaliving in South Africa.
yeah,
I would argue 98 or 99% of them were blacks. I mean,
exactly.
what the hell are you talking about this side? Again, I think there's something going on in South Africa, similar to the implementation of the Lancaster House Agreement by Robert Mugabe at that time in Zimbabwe. And in South Africa, Although people talk about Malema because they kept playing the tape of Malema saying kill the boy, kill the farmer, which is like a chant from during the struggle against apartheid. And they kept playing the song of Malema, who's the fringe. Malema coalition with the Democratic Alliance. Yeah, exactly.
I'm back.
Okay, the government in power, the ANC, is in coalition with the Democratic Alliance, which is the second largest political party in South Africa. These guys have the war chest, right? They control the economy of South Africa, even though they make up less than 10% of the population. And they have a very powerful lobby group called AfriForum. And then they're the second biggest. And people talk about land. The land minister or the land, director or whatever is white. He's African. So look, they keep talking about the exclusion, and some of them even came out to say, "Hang on a second, there's no G-side going on here. This is just big drama show." And they're saying it in South Africa, like the Americans are very good with drama, and this is why I'm scared of America, because of the media. The media can do a perfect spin to the extent that a lot of people in South Africa, in America and around the world, believe that there was a G-side against white people. It's
Yeah, I mean, we're
unbelievable.
stupid enough to believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.